Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dancing Sober podcast. Let's give a big shout out to Espacio 1839 for allowing us to do the podcast inside of their store here. I want to thank them profusely. Don't forget to visit Espacio1839.com on the internet, or you can come visit them in person at 1839 East 1st Street in Boa Heights. This week, like many other weeks, I had a really good time talking with my guest. Let's welcome into the studio actor Carlos Santos. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dancing Sober podcast. And this week we have Puerto Rico in the house. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, in the house, Carlos Santos.
What's up, everybody? ¿Qué está pasando? I don't know when this comes out, but the Puerto Rican Day Parade just happened recently.
Oh, no way. Yeah.
Saludos a toda la gente en Estados Unidos, New York.
Yeah, I've been wanting to actually start saying like the date of the recording. This is like the first time that I'll say like this is recorded June 13th, and it'll probably be out in 3 weeks. So
Nice.
There we go. Santos' last name, I usually don't associate it with Puerto Rico,
That's
you know?
right.
Yeah. Do you get that a lot?
Yeah, Carlos Santos sounds like there's first of all, there's so many Carlos Santos out here in this universe, but it sounds Brazilian. There is like a Carlos Santos, like
Musician, right?
like a Brazilian like pop singer from like the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
It's interesting, but the reason I'm Santos is because it's from my dad. My two last names are Santos Cordero. Santos is actually because my grandfather's dad came from north of Africa, and he became a merchant marine. This is back in the day.
Yeah.
And he was, this was like the 1800s. He was adopted by a Portuguese merchant marine. So he basically they made their way down to Puerto Rico eventually, and that's where my grandfather's dad settled. So he took on the Santos name.
Wow.
And that's how we can't go farther than that because that's as far as like which is crazy. And then Cordero, super Spanish, obviously. Cordero is like from Spain. Like my mom's mom was like basically her parents came from Spain directly. Like they were allá en Jayuya in the middle of like in the center of the island. That's where all like the Spaniards ran.
Yeah.
So like the fair skin and the like light eyes.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That's awesome. Were you born in Puerto Rico?
I was born and raised, yeah.
And so, till what age did you come to the United States? You're the United States.
Yeah. I left Puerto Rico after my freshman year of college. But I learned English. This is the follow-up question. How come because I learned English. They put me in an all-English school in 4th grade, and I got cable. I say cable TV because that's truly like...
Yeah.
But I was 4th grade, in 5th grade. Oh, let me be a professional and put this in silent. Yeah, I went to like an all-English school, like 4th and 5th grade. But by the time I went back to my old school, I was already fluent in cable TV. And that's really how I got like into like the pop culture. Like that's how once I got cable TV at the right age, it was like 8 years old. Yeah. Then everything just kind of like, wow.
So before we get into how you were at a cable TV channel,
right?
Let's go back a little bit. But I love that connection that you learned English from cable TV.
Yeah.
Let's go back. Like, what kind of a kid were you? Like, how were the schools out there? Like, I don't know. I know very little about Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
You couldn't do your research? Just kidding. Just kidding.
This is actually not a deeply researched podcast.
I'm kidding.
I love chatting it up and finding things out.
Yeah, find out. This is real time research.
Yeah,
that's the name of the show. I think the schools are fine. They're great. It's interesting because like there's private and public schools, but the private schools don't have the same like connotation as they have here, where it's like I went to private school, but it wasn't like fancy. It was more like it felt like
different regiment kind of a thing, or
no, it wasn't like baller status. I'm sure there definitely was. There are private schools in Puerto Rico that are for like the politicians and all the people, whatever. But in general, it's very like for the middle class. Private schools are not like out of reach, and then the public schools are kind of like. They vary between areas where it's like it's a little bit more rowdy. It's like you would think of like you know depends on where you are, depends on
was it an all boys school?
No, it's just it was just a co-ed.
And what kind of trouble did you get into?
I was pretty chill. I was pretty chill. I was like doing the biggest pranks I did was like like I remember this will tell you everything you did. I was a little nerd. I had this is so dumb. back in the day, they had these watches that you could control TVs. Like, that's the level of prank. Where you could like put in a code and you can control VCRs, and so I would go to like JCPenney's with my friends and just turn the volume all the way up, and people would be freaking out. Or in school, one time they did there was like a emergency prep thing where they were showing you what to do like an emergency in school, and I was messing with the whole thing, and they had to stop it. And I was so like, I held onto that secret because I thought that was like, oh my God, I don't want it for like years. That's the level of prank. I was very much like, very, very tame.
So in your whole high school, junior high, everything, you never got in trouble?
Not really.
Wow.
I was pretty by the book. My dad, I mean...
Well, what were you into? What were you into? Like reading, or were you into novels, or...
I was just always into comedy without knowing that that's what I wanted to do.
Really?
I loved comedy. I loved, movies. Yeah. I loved, I was around the Jordan era, so it was all basketball.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 42.
42? Yeah. Damn, bro, you look 27, I swear.
That's okay. That's fine. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So I see a little bit more 90s, about like
90s
years,
kid. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's what it was. I feel like it was always like movies. Like I lived by super close to a movie theater, and it was like I would go with one of my best friends, and we would like walk over. In my my teens, I would always walk over, have Taco Bell get super cheap, like a couple of stuffed tacos, go to the movie theater, and it was before that tickets had like the actual information printed out. They were like color tickets. So we would go so much that we had every ticket color combination. So we would essentially that's the kind of trouble I got into. I got my way into free because I would just I would wait till everybody to sit down.
So you could see what color.
And then I would be like, hey, you already got my ticket. And because it was the same, we would look at what the color combination was, and my wallet was filled with a bunch of different tickets. Awesome. That's the kind of scams that I was getting into.
Yeah. No, that's good shit. Yeah. I like that a lot. You never did the open the back door thing?
I did that in college.
You should do that one.
Oh, man. Yeah, when I was in Fresno, a big group of us would always, not only that, we would grab, we didn't care. We would grab like the empty tubs from the trash. Yeah. Like popcorn and stuff, and we would ask for a refill, and I'd be like, you know what, it fell on the ground, because it sounds disgusting. We're like, it fell on the ground. Do you mind if I get a new one? So we would it would all be a circuit of like one person would pay for a ticket, and like 8 people would come in through the back. We would all get free popcorn. So, I don't feel bad about it. I feel like
that's awesome. That's the kind of stuff you got to do when you're at that age. Yeah. You do it to survive, and you do it to hang with your friends, and you do it because you don't have the money. Yeah, if you had the money, you'd fucking buy it. Clearly. But if you don't have the money,
I'm not cheap. I wasn't cheap. I just didn't have the resources.
Yeah, exactly. I'm wondering. So you finished high school in Puerto Rico, right? I'm wondering how that transition was like, or why did you decide, or how did that happen when you're like, oh, I'm going to go to
So I didn't know. I had no clue. The thing is, I always wanted to do comedy, but I had no idea how I was going to do it. My family is not in the industry. My dad was a lawyer. My mom was an accounting professor. My sister is a dentist, and my other sister works at HR. That's the one thing I will say, that I was singularly minded. I knew that that's what I loved, but I had no idea how to do it. So I knew that I wanted to go in the exchange program. So I ended up... ironically enough, because me and math, we don't get along, I got into the University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez, computer engineering. Oh, wow. Which was, at the time, I don't know how it is now, but it was ironic because it was really hard to get into, like ultimately the scores that you needed to achieve. And because we didn't do college, we had the College Board. We didn't have SATs. Whatever that cumulative score would allow you to get, and that was one of the highest. And I got it. And it's ridiculous. So I did spend my freshman year of college in Puerto Rico, because if it was up to me, I would have left immediately, but I still needed to at least spend 1 year in Puerto Rico before I took off in the exchange program. And then I ended up in Fresno very randomly. This is a very funny story, because I originally wanted to go to Florida. I wanted to go to either UCF or FIU. It seemed like closer, or it seemed like a good idea at the time. And then you get 5 options when you do the exchange program. I just put those 2 out, and I randomly put California codes. Like, I didn't do any research outside of the 2 schools. And then they get, oh, you're going to Fresno. You got your 3rd choice. And I was like, huh, where? And it ended up working out. I wouldn't change it. I mean, I wouldn't change it. If I did it again, I'd do it like that. It was definitely...
That was, I guess, a good transition before you came to the bigger cities, you know, like to go into Fresno
I wonder what would have happened if I actually would have gone to Florida. It would have been harder for me to get to LA. I was very single-mindedly. I knew, I mean, at that point, that was a win for me because it just got me closer to what I wanted to do, was ultimately be in LA. But when I went to Fresno State, I switched over to theater arts. I started doing stand-up and improv and all that stuff. And by the time I graduated, I'd done Second City Conservatory. I'd done like a summer arts program as I was moving to LA. So that kind of set me up as I moved to LA.
Let's go back a little bit. I'm wondering what kind of plays you did in college.
Yeah. So I did a couple musicals. I did a couple Shakespeare plays. It was a pretty good, well-rounded
program.
Yeah. Fresno State is a really good theater program.
Yeah.
It's a good, it was definitely, especially for me, it was, at the beginning, just leaving Puerto Rico was a big deal. A lot of people would say, like, Fresno. But I didn't know, like a lot of people, however you might feel about Fresno, because when I tell people I went to Fresno, they're like, what? Why? I was, inside the bubble. It was a great experience. So I loved it. I loved my time at Fresno State. It's
one of those, you get out of it what you put into it.
Right.
So you showed up to work and.
Yeah, it was huge enough that the idea that I was literally taking a step towards what I wanted, which was so scary. I was like 18 at the time. Just turned 18.
Had you done any kind of theater in Puerto Rico?
Outside of college? No. I've done like some understudy stuff and I've done some smaller stuff, but not like a full like production like I did when I was in college.
But before college, had you done any?
High school, like.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was in high school.
Theater was a thing you wanted to do.
Theater
you wanted to act.
seemed, yeah. Well, comedy was always the top, and then theater just seemed like, if I can't go to school for comedy, then I can certainly go to school for theater, and that's a step forward. It's still a craft. It's still something, and something that seemed at the time logical.
Yeah.
I feel like now maybe if I had a choice, I mean, Fresno State was a great opportunity and a great experience, but like, if I did it any differently, maybe I would have come straight here and just started doing Groundlings and Second City like directly as an 18-year-old, because I feel like that kind of training has been the things that I've used the most in my career. Like,
how did you know that like there were schools for comedy? Because I didn't even know that until I discovered UCB one day.
Right, I didn't. UCB didn't really, wasn't even in the radar for me till after 2006. But before that, I didn't know. I actually, I remember being at Fresno State, like in the computer lab, looking at like stuff that I could do, like in LA. And I had read about Groundlings, and I read about all the people that came out of Groundlings, and I had read about Second City. This was before I did the summer arts program. So that's what it felt like. But still, at that point, it was just very hard because it's like, I still felt like I needed to do like the typical, like the foundational college degree thing. Which is fine. I think college, for better or worse, it's a good transitional point. It's a halfway house for reality.
I'm also sure that, or maybe I imagine that because you came from, your parents were, licenciados, and, so I'm sure that they already saw you with a degree. Like you couldn't not get a degree. Maybe.
Yeah, no, honestly, I'm very lucky because they never put pressure on me. I think they saw early on that I was...
Este payaso,
So I was the youngest. Also, I was the youngest. My sisters are 10 years older than me. I was a little mascot.
Okay.
Running around. So
That's a big difference in age.
Yeah. And as far as I can remember, I've always just tried to make people laugh. Or I've always had that inclination growing up. And it wasn't until I was like 13 or 14, I was like, that's what I want to do. I didn't, like when I saw like Jim Carrey for the first time, I was like, what is this? I want to do this so bad. Or, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, like, oh my God, this is... Yeah. But again, it seems like such a pipe dream. Like you're so separated from it because I'm Puerto Rico.
And you don't know the path.
Exactly.
Like you said it's a pathway, but you don't even know that.
Yeah, but thank God my parents never put pressure on me. Yeah. They, I think, when after the fact, like my mom told me that they were really scared because of me leaving Puerto Rico and me doing theater and just going out there. But they never showed me when it mattered. They were always very supportive when it mattered. And so I always appreciate that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because, the best thing you have in your youth is your ignorance and the idea that you can do anything.
Blind faith.
Yeah, blind faith. You need that. You need that kind of stupidity in your life to succeed.
I mean, that's why we have people cheering us on sometimes. You can do it.
Yeah,
it is necessary. So when you did you come to LA to start the comedy? Did you find...
So I did the summer arts program for Second City. It was literally that summer when I graduated.
That Second City summer arts program was here?
It was in Fresno.
It was in Fresno.
Yeah, that was a program. So they had come, which was perfect. I mean, thinking about it, the transition, because I graduated. It was the one summer that I stayed in Fresno because I would always go back home, and I was moving to LA. Yeah. One of my best friends got into Caltech, so I was going to move. I moved to Pasadena for when I first got here because it just kind of worked out. But I did the summer arts program, and that actually allowed me to go directly into the conservatory because I had already kind of done before.
Wow.
That experience working with all the teachers at the summer arts program. By the time I got to LA, which was like 2 months later, I auditioned for the conservatory. I got in, so I started immediately the conservatory program, and then a twist of luck and fate, not faith. A month later, I was auditioning for LATV.
Wow.
Less than a month later.
Yeah.
So, and that took a long time because I didn't actually start working. This was like September of 2003. Wow. This is so crazy.
Big shout out right now to LATV, and to our people from LATV.
I still get people recognizing me from LATV. I'm like, OG.
Yeah. And how did that come about too? Like, how did you get, you just came to LA.
Yeah.
Get into this school that's, a lot of people wish they can go to, and then all of a sudden, LATV just boom.
I found an online old school. I didn't have any representation, so I found there was a website for
Backstage West.
Yeah, but it was actually I think it was chucklemonkey.com. It was old school. It was for comedians but it also sometimes had listings for stuff. And I remember looking at it, and it was a thing that we're looking for a host because LATV they had the old cast. I think they were trying to refresh with new people. They're trying to refresh the roster. And I remember telling my roommate at the time, I'm like, you think I would be a good host? Because I was like, at that point, anything was, any idea.
You needed a job.
Any opportunity. Honestly, which is crazy now because it translated to almost 7 years of, that was my first 7 years in my career, my career were devoted to hosting. And so I auditioned, I went in, but it took a while. It took a while because they kept calling me back, and so it took the rest of the year. Mm-hmm. So I didn't find out till January of 2004. Mm-hmm. So while that was happening, I was going off for stuff. I did extra work. But that was the beginning. Through that, I found my first representation, and it was just, everything just kind of, this pretty much been my career. Everything has been established by the work, not by knowing anybody, which, I think that's why it's taken, it's taken longer.
Tell me a little bit about...
to get to where I am, but I don't mind. I think it's good.
Tell me a little bit about your, ¿cómo se dice? The extra work, because I did a couple of extra gigs.
Oh, yeah? What'd you do?
I did a Coke commercial.
Oh, you did extra work for Coke?
Yeah,
nice.
Just once. Yeah, okay. At Paramount Studios. And
So as soon as I got here, you hear from some people, through people that I met during the summer arts program. And I did Boston Public. I can't even say that. Boston Public.
The theater.
The show. It was on Fox.
Yeah, a legal show.
Yeah, it was So I did that show for a little bit, and then after that.
Well, you did it as an extra.
As a student, yeah. You can find certain episodes. The Dennis Miller episode, you can see me. I know for sure that I'm in it, where he's like a teacher. Because that was the closest. I think that's always, if you're coming in, that's the best way to get acquainted with what it looks like to be on set and stuff. So I did that, and then I did The Terminal. Through that, they were saying, they're taking auditions for the Tom Hanks movie, The Terminal. So those were the two things that I did during that time before I started working with LATV. It was great. I was there, I spent 2 weeks. I got to see Spielberg. Diego Luna was in it.
Wow, yeah.
Catherine Zeta-Jones. Tom Hanks was a sweetheart to me. There was one point where I was shooting something, and it was a huge cast. All the extras were in a restaurant, and they kept pushing me out. And I was the only person that was out, so I was just outside. And all of a sudden I hear somebody go, "Oh, they cut you out." And I go, yeah. And I look over and it's Tom Hanks. And I'm like, huh. And he goes, you know what? I don't know. I can't promise you anything, but some heads are going to roll. He was such a sweetheart. Like, he didn't have to do that to this punk kid.
Yeah, of course. He's being funny, but also like...
Yeah, and he was, you know, that's also stuff that you pick up on. Like, I respect that a lot. That kind of, he was chill. He was like, he would sit around, like, nobody would bother him. He wouldn't, like... There was no, like, stressful thing as opposed to maybe some of the other actors that were maybe a little bit more, like, you had to look down. They did that thing, and you're like... I was seeing both ends of the spectrum within that, like, week of work at the terminal. Yeah. I don't want to call out the actors that did that because there's a good chance I'm in the mix now, too. It wasn't Diego Luna. He was a sweetheart. It was somebody else, and I'll let you figure it out. Check out the cast. Go on MDB.com and figure it out. But it was a great experience, and so I think that that was all happening at the same time.
Seeing movie sets, seeing how things move, seeing the mechanics, and how just people's jobs when you think nobody works. You're like, what are these people standing around for? But then you realize everybody has a job. Yeah. And it all clicks. So, that's a good way to learn the ropes in that, too. Extra work. Yeah.
So by, I think, February 11th, 2004 was the first day I shot my first thing for LATV. And
what was it?
It was Instant Request Live.
Oh, yeah.
They split us up with Viviana and Candace.
I don't remember them. Yeah. I don't remember their names by name, but I remember.
It was actually really interesting because that was the original idea. They hired another girl, Lorena, and me, and so originally Instant Request Live, it was Vivi and Candace, and so they split it into Vivian, me, and Candace and Lorena. And I think people, they were big fans of Viviana and Candace. So I feel like at some point, it just after a couple months, it was almost like it was going to be like done. Like that matchup wasn't going to work out. And then I don't know if you remember the show, but they had like a computer. They had like a guy in a computer in the back doing the shout outs. So I was like, hey, can I... Because that was pretty much done. I seemed like that was a hustle on my part because this was my opportunity. So I would like... When I think about like that, I really went for it. I was living in Pasadena, and I always found an excuse to be at LATV almost every day. Because I wasn't getting paid unless I did the shows, but I felt like I was like, I am chomping at the bit. I'm gonna go. I ended up like working. I feel like because I just was taking advantage of that opportunity. So I was like, hey, nobody's doing, because they always used to get an intern. It was like a whatever person in the back, like, oh, shout out to whatever, and so they gave me the opportunity to jump back there, and it ended up being like a really cool like sidekick to Viviana and Candace, and it generated like comedy because I'm not in the forefront, so I was able to just kind of come in and have some fun, and that ended up actually like saving I think my time at LATV to the point where by the end of the summer, I started hosting the LATV Live. Wow! So that was an interesting, and I have I've recorded most of the stuff. It's interesting. It's good. It's cool. Like, it's just like to look back at myself. Like, I see like a young version of me, like really hustling and like going for the opportunity.
And for the people that don't know, there used to be a thing called MTV Tres.
That's true.
That you then jumped to, right?
It's still around, but I don't think it's not. Yeah, but it's not the same. Oh, okay. It's not this. They don't have like hosts. So what happened is 3.5 years after I started doing LATV, MTV at that time, if you remember, they were doing a bunch of different MTVs, MTV Korea, MTV 2, MTV whatever. There was so many like different, and so MTV Tres was like gonna be originally was MTV Español, and so they were branding it into MTV Tres, and so it's really interesting because by the time MTV Tres came out, I had 3.5 years of bilingual television experience. I was overly qualified.
Yeah, you were probably one of the only people that had that kind of experience.
It was like, when I came in, I was like, just for free. Not for free. I mean, like, I wasn't trying. Just by not even trying, I was so like, this is it. Like, and also it helped that I was bilingual. Like a lot of my early opportunities came about because very few people were able to actually be like fluent.
Yeah, and you have a really good Spanish and English, not just like, it's not choppy in either direction.
Which helped out with like interviews and stuff. So like I had that experience of the bilingual. By the time I auditioned, dude, it was like I was like not even nervous. I was like, oh yeah, I got it. Yeah. So I auditioned in 2006, and I think that they flew me out to New York in the summer of 2006. I did like a test, like a camera test, and then they're like, "You got it, and you got to move." And I had to move in like 2 weeks. It was crazy.
Damn,
it was not. That was a tough. I was just letting everything like.
Did they like give you a little advance so you could do the move?
Little, because we were like the stepchildren of MTV.
Of course. Yeah.
A proper MTV had like run down, like they in the heyday they spent so much money, so we were getting probably like a fraction. We were getting a fraction of what regular TRL, and rightfully so, because they were the bigger thing. But like I didn't get any corporate housing. I think they gave me like $4,000 and like figure it out.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. It was very overwhelming. Yeah. Like leaving everything in 2 weeks, just literally my life that I had established in LA for 3.5 years. To move out there, I didn't know anybody. To figure out, well, I had a cousin in Washington Heights.
Washington Heights? Sorry.
Yeah. In the Heights. So I was like, I was there when Lin-Manuel was living that experience.
Yeah.
But it was still rough. It was tough, like that tough transition. And going to New York, like I don't romanticize my time in New York.
Yeah.
I understand, because it wasn't, I know it wasn't fair because I had to go like to work. I didn't grow any roots. I had to go to Times Square. Imagine having to go to Times Square every day for 4 years. It gets old real quick. And I didn't know any better, so I lived in Manhattan because it was closer. Like, I know a lot of people now might have a better experience if they're outside of Manhattan, but at the time I was like, I got to find a place that's close, and so I ended up just being in Manhattan for the whole ride.
And how long did that last?
The MTV Tres?
Yeah.
4 years. So it was from 2006 to 2010.
Damn, that's good.
Yeah.
Who were like some of the highlights that you remember from that?
I loved like even before it started, Ricky Martin, which is obviously.
Yeah. It's crazy to think that.
Dude, like, Ricky Martin, I grew up listening to Ricky Martin and Jennifer Lopez, like. But like Ricky Martin, he recorded his Unplugged set for MTV. And this is right before it started, so I was there physically. Wow. I was like, what is going on? Yeah. And Jennifer Lopez came to the show in 2007, and like not even 5 years before, it was like 99, summer of 2000, she had gone to promote On the 6. Jennifer Lopez came to the show in 2007, and like in 2000, I went to like Casa de los Tapes, like a record store.
Casa de los Tapes.
Yeah,
I love that.
In Puerto Rico. It was the summer. I was still in Puerto Rico. Well, I was still in Puerto Rico at the time. Or was it No, it was the summer of '99. It was right before I left to Fresno. Damn. And I went to I bought the CD to get it signed by Jennifer Lopez. I have pictures of that. It was a white-ass table, and I have 3 pictures, and we never could, like, look at the same time. So I took those pictures. I took them to the show. I'm like, hey, this is wild. Yeah. Like, she was like, is this real? Like, yes, it's real. So to have that, and then I shot a sketch with her, and she was on the show. I ended up... My first experience in the Puerto Rican Day Parade was that summer. She was part of our float with Mark Anthony at some point. There's a picture of me, Mark Anthony, and Jennifer Lopez, and I'm just like in the middle, like,
wow.
Like, talk about your first experience for the Puerto Rican Day, where just like it turns the corner and you see this. It was amazing. So having that obviously was really cool. But under all that, there was an inkling of me that was just like under the whole surface that. That's not what I wanted to do. So that was always something that I loved the opportunities that it was providing, but I knew that at some point closer to the end of it, I was like, I got to get out because I didn't want to be a host. I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be a comedian. When I was interviewing music people, it was fine. But as soon as a comedian would come to the show or an actor, like any of that, I would find myself like struggling, and I couldn't understand why. And it was because it was like your spirit telling you you're in the wrong side of it. You're on the wrong side. So I dealt with that, and I had to make that decision. By the time 2010 rolled out, they were going to move to Miami, and I was like, I'm done. Like my contract was up, and so I basically started from scratch, and I moved back to LA.
Now, I don't remember what year it was, but when I first saw you do stand-up, I was like, oh, that's the guy from MTV Tres. But it was during Voto Latino.
2012.
Yeah. 2012, okay, yeah. So I was a photographer on that. With my friend Juan Luis Garcia, Noe Montes, thank you guys. And there was 3 photographers on that. So yeah, I remember seeing you and going like, oh, that's the guy that started there and then moved there. Now he's doing, he's here. So I was like, he's doing stand-up now. Wow.
And I'd always been, even before,
exactly. Yeah. I mean, you had, but I hadn't seen it. So that was the first time that I saw you. And it's just crazy to me to like see all these like little tiny steps and little things that we keep doing in our lives just to continue when you have that creative spirit and you just want to like
when there's no plan B.
This is the way I see it now. Like I just want to be able to keep playing. Like let me play. I want to play. Put me in, coach, or whatever. You know, like so. I love that you continue to just like strive and strive and strive, and so that took you into coming back to LA. And
literally starting from scratch, because the only thing that 2012 was a really rough year for me. I came back in 2011.
So let's just like paint the picture. Okay. You were on MTV Tres. You were on the Spanish version of the daily
TRL.
And you're fucking next to J-Lo and Mark Anthony. You come back to LA.
And I said I need to leave. And my friends were freaking out.
You said you need to leave.
So I had an epiphany in 2009, and I've said this before. This is really funny. I was watching The Proposal. The movie had nothing to do with my epiphany, but I remember I was in DC, and after I came out of the movie, I had an epiphany, and I told my friend, I was like, I need to leave MTV because I'm at this comfortable space, and this is not. Yeah. I'm back at like that comfort zone that's not allowing me to really go for what I want to do. I'm kind of like going with the flow, and my friend freaked. He was like, "What are you talking about? It's hard when people don't see what, you know, only you can see like your own potential, because people were like, what are you talking about? You're on TV and you're working, you know, every day and you're getting a check every week. I got a check every week and that's when I realized that wasn't enough. Everybody has to come to that.
It's hard to follow that sometimes.
But for me, I was like, man, and I remember saying 2009, it still took me a year before I was like actually left, but I feel like that was a turning point for me to be like, I got to start making moves. This cannot be the thing, because I don't want to be Mario Lopez. I don't want to be Carson Daly. I mean, shout out to them and much respect, but that's not what I wanted to do. And that's what everybody kept shoving me, especially when you're a minority. They see you in something and that's it.
Well, I mean, also that once they see the package, like, let's just refine the package. And it's fucking.
Yeah. And I feel like I left at the right time, because I think hosting kind of like had a very huge shift. I think a lot of times, I think it was easier to be a host and survive in the industry before, and then now they usually go for either celebrities or social media people. Like, it shifted. They're like old school hosts right now are probably struggling a little bit more than when back in the mid 2000s. But anyway, so that was my decision. I remember saying like, I'd rather be broke and have all the opportunities in the world than be under contract with MTV and not be able to do anything. And life was like, well, here you go. So I came back. Eso es lo que quiere. Toma. So I came back, and so that I came back in 2011. So between 2011, like that year was really rough, because I had a really great reps. I was repped by like William Morris, which was like a big deal. But they only wanted me to do hosting stuff. So it was like a big decision for me to also like, I had to clean house. Yeah. And that's also something that a lot of artists or actors, in terms of my specific situation for actors, is like you have to come to a decision whether you want to like really make a decision that's going to sound like a sacrifice, because a lot of times actors want to stay with agencies that are like big time, but they don't do anything for them. So they were pushing me towards hosting, and I kept saying no. So I basically was not working. The only thing that was available for me was hosting related work. Wow. And so I was broke. By the end of 2011, I was broke. And so by 2012, I just had like some other personal stuff. Like it was a year of transition for me. It was a dark night of the soul. I don't know if you've heard that phrase. It's a lot of people go through dark night. Like it's like a specific amount of time. Batman, though. It sounds like a Batman sequel, but I'm Batman. But it was a really like that year. Like I broke up with. I had a relationship that was a 4-year relationship that ended at the beginning of the year. I was broke. My dad passed away. I was literally struggling but that was the transitional point for me to come out the other end. By the time 2012 ended, at literally the first week of 2013 is when I booked Metro PCS, which I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, I remember those commercials too.
That shit saved my life.
Yes,
saved.
You were like their first spokesperson
for 2 years, and that was enough. That set me into an orbit where I have not looked back since Metro PCS in terms of like finance, like
being able to support yourself.
Yes, being able to support my career. So to me, it's just been like. It's been a magical journey, but it's definitely been a confirmation of those things of like taking that risk and going after what I really wanted. and not staying in a comfortable place, and just, it's paid off. And I feel like that decision that I made in 2009, I feel like sometimes this happens to me a lot. I find myself telling, sometimes if it's going to sound like, sometimes I feel like telling people because I'm a conduit. I'm not. Yeah. A lot of times people find themselves in crossroads, and I always tell them, like, when I recognize it, I'm like, because I've been there, I'm like, whatever decision you make now, it's going to be determined the next 10 years of your life. And for me, like, making that decision in 2009, it was crazy because I wrote it in, like, I remember writing it down in 2009 when I had the epiphany. And when I booked Gentefied, it was 10 years to the month.
What?
So 10 years to the month, I booked Gentefied.
Wow.
And I don't think I would have been a Gentefied if it wouldn't have been for making that decision that started in 2009.
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that, like, I've just been blessed by just the confirmation of, like, there's obviously the spiritual energy of it all, and just the appreciation of taking those risks. And obviously it's easier because I didn't have mouths to feed. So, but I was broke. I was hungry. I was eating. Yeah. I joke about it, but my dinner sometimes would be Jolly Ranchers and pancakes.
Yeah,
whatever was left in the pantry. It was rough.
I've had those one pancake dinners. Yeah.
Dude, I could live off of for $10. I could feed myself for 4 days.
Yeah. Oh, easily.
Eggs, refried beans, tortillas.
Yep. Tienes que saber vivir
and
pobre.
Protein powder. Yeah. Dude, I could live off for like stretch that dollar.
Yeah, easily, yeah. I love that. I want to know, like, before we get to Gentefied, so that was like 2010 to
2011 when I moved back.
So those 10 years of you being here and struggling, like, what kind of work were you getting, or
So I was struggling the first year, but once I got rid of everybody and I got new management and I started from scratch, everything started to work out, like to build up again. I essentially started to work a lot in commercials, and I think the comedy and the improv really helped out. So after Metro PCS, I feel like I've had a spot almost every year.
Wow, that's good.
And so that definitely was the point for me to continue to focus, so that I could focus on the comedy. I went to UCB. I had started doing Upright Citizens Brigade in 2010 in New York. Oh, wow. I did like the first 2 courses, but then obviously I didn't have money when I came back. So it wasn't until 2014 that I came back. I was like, all right, I'm making my money. And so I was like, let me
can afford
invest.
UCB.
Yeah. So I got into UCB. I got into groundlings. I did the first 2 or 3 levels of groundlings, and I just ended up staying at UCB.
All right, quick answer, and then we'll move on. Okay. What do you like better, UCB or groundlings?
They're different. Schools of thought. Yeah. They're different tools in the handbag. Groundlings is character based, which is very important. That's why I wanted to do it, because it helped me to really hone in, like, for character stuff, which is very important. I think UCB is more game, and game is like what's funny about a situation, and that's helpful for many other reasons. Second City, I still feel like for actors, it's probably one of the best ones because it's relationship-based improv. Okay. And so, like, that's the type of thing you use when you're filming, when you're working, when you're acting. Yeah. Because when it's relationship-based, you're focusing on different things. It ends up being funny, but it's not because you're trying to hit the joke or you're trying to be a crazy character. Yeah. It's because you're focusing on the relationship and the person that's in front of you. Yeah. So I don't subscribe to, like, saying, like, I think they're all great. Yeah. I think that they have different priorities, and I think that's if you love improv like I do, like, I think it would behoove you to just train, as much as possible. I'm a huge fan of the long form Herald. Yeah. Fucking love that shit. Yeah. And then I started watching the musical. The musical improv. Mm-hmm. Insane. Yeah. Like, insane how good that stuff is. I love that stuff so much. Yeah. It's so good. And I've seen also the Dow Close documentary. Oh, the documentary. Yeah. I haven't ever been to the Dow Close Marathon, but I've seen the documentary, and so I'm a big nerd fan of improv, but I've never done it. That's like a whole different. You never want to take a class? I've done theater in the past, but improv was always really hard for me, and at this age, I'm like, should I even bother going? And yes. The answer is yes. Yeah. The answer is always yes for anything theater, because, like, the games and the fun stuff is like what. Yeah, it's a muscle. It took me a long time for me to feel like it never feels like it's like if you're not good at it, that's what it's supposed to be. Like I think professional, like it really is like learning a language, and improv becomes second nature after you've done it long enough.
Yeah.
That's it. I struggled. I always felt like, for the first I don't know how many years. And very recently do I now feel like, even if I fail, it's going to be great. Like that fear of like getting locked up is...
A bad day at improv is great.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
And that's that's the biggest lesson, yeah. But, yeah.
So then now let's talk about Gentefied. Like, what a big fucking, like, phenomenon or event. I mean, for me, even, like, I actually met Marvin before you guys started shooting, and like he would come over here. We had coffee a few times. He was talking to me about Ball Heights. I didn't know that he was already like working on this big thing. He's like, I got these shorts.
Yeah, because that was in 2016. He had done the digital.
Yeah, the digital stuff. He invited me to the digital series. I saw that at the Ace, and I was blown away by it. Like, literally blown away. I was like, all right, this guy is really a filmmaker. Like, he's not out here fucking around. So I didn't meet Linda till after. And, I was glad that I was a part of all that and really loved the show. And really sad that it ended quickly for me. Yeah. But tell us about your experience. I don't want to talk about him. So you were there.
I was there. Yeah. I had met Marvin before too. Like we had met through the industry, through like friends. He actually was a friend of Spanish Aquí Presents, which is a team that I'm on.
Okay, yeah. That's right. Yeah, we didn't bring up your team that you work with.
Right.
Spanish Aquí Presents.
Yeah. We started in 2018 originally out of UCB and immediately blew up. Like it was something. This is a tangent, but like. We were in other teams and we had done stuff in Spanish, but it wasn't, I don't know what it was about that combination of people, the Raisa Licea, Tony Rodriguez, and Oscar Montoya. And when we made that show, like I did not expect it to be sold out. I mean, we sold out that show at UCB, I wouldn't say like 98% for like 2 years. Yeah. And it was like, I have promoted the same for other shows and it just wasn't, like people really, you could tell that people were really like, yearning for something like that.
Was it at the big stage?
It was at the Sunset stage, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Because I saw you guys once, but in the little... the cafe thing in the side.
Oh, yeah. Downstairs. Yeah. In the by the parking.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting the name of it now, but yeah, by
the coffee shop.
Coffee shop, yeah. The Inner Sanctum.
Yeah.
But our main show, which was like a variety show. So anyway, we had known Marvin. Marvin actually taken pictures of us, I think 2018 before, like, so we had worked with him and he was, he'd been to the show. I remember when they announced Gentefied because I had heard about the digital series too. Actually, I think I was working on, I had heard about the digital series auditions back in 2016, but I was working, so I couldn't even like send something because it was like, which I don't know, maybe in the long run that ended up working in my favor because who knows. But in 2019, when they announced it, I remember when they announced it in Deadline, I was like, that's so cool. I hope at least I get to audition, Yeah. But it wasn't like, I gotta get in. So they waited till the very end, I think, after they were auditioning, where they finally got to see me. And, I was in pilot season, too, so I was going out for other shows, and it was just something about it. As soon as I read it was interesting because I think originally they read me for JJ's part for Eric, which was weird because I would have never been a believable cholo with a heart of gold. Hey, as much as I try, it's not going to work.
It's good, bro.
But then they called me back for Chris, and then when I really, I had a really good... Very seldomly do I have these opportunities in my life, and I say this as humbly. I mean, I'm saying it objectively. Like from MTV Tres, when I was auditioning, I was like, I got this because I got a handle on it, and I felt the same way about Chris. And we're moving forward, but I felt the same way about Ryan for Primo. But I had a really good handle, so when I got called back, I auditioned for Chris, and it just felt like really everything just came together. I wasn't nervous. Everything just flowed out of me. I remember I did a producer session. So by the time I was testing, the only problem was I didn't have a lot of credits. So I got 4 minutes before the thing. I didn't have a lot of.
Do it right now, real quick.
I gotta finish the story and then end a point. I didn't have a lot of credits, so Netflix. I had done like a guest star and a co-star, a handful of credits, and that was a big jump to go to series regular. So Netflix was like, "Wait a minute, we don't know if this guy can do it." So they kept calling me back, and so I ended up having to re-audition. After the production, the producers were happy with me, but the network, which is fine, it's a big deal. Like, I ended up auditioning like 5 or 6 times. Damn. It was like they kept calling me back, and instead of like making me nervous, it actually just solidified it because I had more time to work on the character. I had more time to. A lot of times, actors don't realize that it is hard to put something together when you're auditioning because you just have like. Sometimes you don't have more than 24 hours to work on something. It's so much easier when you sit with a character, when you sit with some lines. And so by the end of it, I was just like, it was so anticlimactic because I was like, come on. When they called me and they said, I was like, you got it. I'm like, yeah, I got it. I mean, it's just like, golly, how many times do I have to come and prove it?
That's awesome.
But yeah, it was definitely like, it was crazy. Like, I felt like that year when I started 2019, I felt like, I don't know, I had it in my bones that something was going to happen. And, maybe it was harkening back to that 2009 epiphany. So then I booked it, and I think that was that really, and what, like after all these years and just holding out and sacrificing my career and holding out for something like that, it was also like such a special, like I couldn't have asked for a better show to be a part of that opened that door for me. I mean, I'll always be in debt to, Marvin and Linda and just everybody, America Ferrera. It was a really special.
America Ferrera, dude. What another, like.
It's wild, yeah.
Another person, like, really praise, and she's a badass, And, like, I have a daughter that's 30 years old, so I've been watching a lot of America stuff with my daughter. Yeah, so I have a love for everything that she does. So I was really excited that she was a part of this whole thing too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and obviously, like, that opened the doors for me, moving forward. I haven't looked back since, so I'm really happy.
And speaking of my daughter, she gave me these 2 books written by Shea Serrano. Uh-huh. And I was like, fucking dope books, right? The one about rap and the one about the movies. Yeah. Amazing books. This guy, boom, like knowledge up the yin-yang about all these things. And in a good way, what a nerd,
Just a great way to dissect all that stuff. It's
insane. And so when this show came up, I started following him on Instagram. Then I noticed, he got a deal. He's writing the show. He this and that. I still had not noticed that you were on it until I actually clicked play. I downloaded the app, the freebie app. Yeah. Clicked play, and I was like,
but you don't have to. You could also just go to Amazon Prime and watch it for free. You don't
watch it on freebie or Amazon.
You don't need to download anything. Just literally go to Amazon and watch it. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, so anyways, what a fun show. Like, literally fun stuff. Like, all the things of being a kid, all the things of being in Mexican families or Latino families, and not just Mexican, of course, but all the tios. I mean, that's hilarious. And then the little love thing. And I love that they're always kicking it at the front of the store because that's what we used to do, Just so many really cool things. And it's just one of those shows that does have like that little magic, that little bit of magic like that just makes it all believable, in its own way.
It's working on all, whatever the phrase is, cylinders? We're working on all, what's the word I'm looking for?
All cylinders, yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, that's
firing on all cylinders.
Firing. Okay, yeah.
That's what I meant.
All cylinders. Yeah,
sometimes I can. And also like that's a wild transition for me because we had been canceled. Gentefied got canceled at the end of January, and less than a month later, I was auditioning for Primo.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's scary. I'm gonna look back at my career and be like. So many dominoes, in my life, I can't because I'll go I get a panic attack. There are so many things in my life that literally, if it wasn't for this one thing and this one thing, everything would just be like a house of cards. So I'm just really grateful and just kind of keeping my focus in the present and the future.
And I mean, it's also commendable how you continue to study your craft. You continue to I mean, you came out here because you want to share with people. You still want to promote yourself. You still want to, like, you're constantly like working on yourself as an actor, as a person working, as a person. Just like what I like to call like looking for things to discover. You know, like I'm on a constant like also like
search.
Search for like new things, and these conversations are part of that, like learning how other people have done it and why other people have done it. So I see that in you too, like, because I didn't put it together till watching Primo. Like I saw Gentefied, and I didn't think of it when I watched Primo. I was like, oh, that's the guy. That's the guy. That's the guy. I was like, I went all the way back, and I was like, what a trip. And then boom, I bump into you at La Leaf.
I mean,
dude, that's why I wore this shirt.
You know what's really crazy is that last year it was the 15-year anniversary of MTV Tres. And one of the things that I had done when I moved back and I stopped posting. I mean, I basically was like, I went radio silent because I was trying to start from scratch, truly. Like, I didn't want people to be like, oh, that's the MTV Tres guy. Like, I disappeared for 10 years. And it's not negative against MTV, but it was more like I refused to believe that was the best thing that in my career, like that. I refused to believe that was like the only top thing that I was ever going to do. So in saying that, like, a lot of people did, like, when I popped up over Gentefied, even people didn't recognize it and put together. So when I posted these, because I posted like 2 slideshows of like pictures from MTV Tres, the people's minds, when they were like, the guy from MTV Tres?
Yes.
Is the guy from Gentefied?
That's what I did.
So, which is cool, because I felt like for me, it was like my challenge. I didn't want to like rest on my laurels.
Yeah.
And that was also part of like the transition for me. So it was really cool. But yeah, like, it's fun to see people like, it's a hell of a, it's been a minute.
And this crew of people on this show too, like, magnificent.
Yeah.
Like, all the people on it too, like, shout out to them, and all the work that they're doing. And yeah, so it's like you have another family now to, like, you know.
It's pretty wild. I don't know when the other shoe's gonna drop. I've been very lucky, very nurturing, like, back-to-back experiences with shows. I don't know.
I gotta ask, like, on set, are like the guys the same way? Like,
the uncles? Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I don't. Listen, I don't.
There's a lot of
I've said this before.
Busting chops.
Nobody ever, like, a credit to Carla Hul, casting director. Credit to the production, to Shay and Mike Schur. Like, they didn't do chemistry reads. Chemistry, usually when you're putting a show together, you read people so that they see if they fit. And we didn't. We got cast, and I'm like, are we gonna meet the family? Sorry, when I tell you that we got there the first day and we just like immediately hit the ground running, it was unbelievable. We didn't have to bond. We didn't have to go on a trip. First day, I met them the first day we started filming, and it just like nothing. I was like, wow, amazing. I got to give people, like, they saw it. I was like, I'm scared because you don't know what you're going to get. Yeah. No, we instantly, I think everybody just really recognized how special the project was. And everybody came with so much, gratefulness. And the right kind of energy. And we immediately bonded immediately. And we were also in Albuquerque for 3 months. So it's easier when you're out and you're on location somewhere.
It's just you and the group, and it's not. Yeah.
It's pretty immediate.
They gave you some good screen time, man, and you killed it. So that was really dope. Congratulations on that. And I'm sure you guys got a season 2, right?
Well, we're waiting. Yeah. And unfortunately, we're still dealing with the strike.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, don't forget about the strike. So hopefully that'll be resolved soon. But I feel pretty good about it. I think that we've seen the feedback from critics and from the audience. It seems like really good. It would stand to reason. Yeah. That we would, but I think it's safer if they don't really announce anything until they absolutely have to. Yeah. It makes sense. I mean, obviously, would I like to know, like, today? Yes, of course. Yeah. But I feel I have a good feeling about it based on reaction.
I think watching you in this show, like, made me want to see you in the movie now.
Well, like, August 25th.
What? Tell me about it.
So, Vacation Friends. I don't know if you remember that movie came out for Hulu. It was John Cena, Lil Rel, Yvonne Orji, and Meredith Hagner. And I was in the first 10 minutes of the movie. I'm playing a hotel manager.
Vacation Friends?
Vacation Friends.
Okay.
So this is really cool. I shot that literally the week before the pandemic started.
Damn.
So February 20th, 2020, Gentefied comes out. Like a week later or so, like I auditioned for this thing and I get it. And it was just like literally, I worked like a weekend. I shot it out of Puerto Rico. And it's a character. I'm doing my version of Ricardo Montalban. So every time, this is the voice that I am the hotel manager. So you see, and so I auditioned with that because I had done a sketch previously. So it was great. I already had like a handle on what the hotel manager should be. And then so I did that, but you should check it out. Like literally,
definitely,
first 10 minutes, and then if you want to keep watching, that's fine. But something very magical happened, and I didn't show up again. But those 10 minutes were so strong. At least I chomped at the bit. I really went for it. It was like a nothing part. I was just supposed to be like the hotel manager that sets the plot in motion, but I feel like they let me play, and just I'm like in an actual movie. I'm like improvising and playing.
Guy, yeah.
I'm like, oh my god,
So
and it's
fun.
working.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening is that people really responded positively to it, and I didn't show up again because of COVID. So they could have been at the end of the movie. I could have showed up for the thing, but that ended up actually, I think, creating more of like, hey, what happened to that guy? Hey, what happened to that guy? I was like, who's this guy? That people, and so literally the dream as an actor to be like, hey, who's that guy? So then I got called back to do the sequel.
Wow.
And now I'm like a part of the cast. I'm in the whole movie.
Dude, with
whole
John
movie.
Cena.
And I got to work with, Steve Buscemi.
Wow.
I mean, it's just, this is like
Heroes.
sweetheart of a man. But just to be able to play, again, this has been my career, has always been, my work has been what's gotten me. I've never like networked my way into it, basically. I've like kind of like my work speak for itself. So this is another opportunity that just kind of like presented itself because of those 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And so we shot the movie in Hawaii at the end of last year.
Damn.
And so it's coming out in August.
So what is it called?
Vacation Friends 2, I think.
Vacation Friends 2.
It's
Wow.
coming out on Hulu.
Yeah.
I'm sure a trailer will come out soon, but I had a blast. And I'm really excited to see how it comes out.
Yeah. What kind of movies do you like? Like, if you could pick a movie to be in, what would you like? Dream role, maybe.
I mean, I run the gamut. I'd love to do an action comedy. I grew up with Bad Boys. I would love to do something like that. Yeah. I would also love to do an ensemble comedy. I mean, I also grew up, I think, Will Ferrell has been such a huge influence. Steve Carell has been such a huge influence. So that Anchorman vibe, like I grew up with that. I don't know. I would just, just to get a chance to do something like that would be so great.
I think something like a Knives Out. Like, like where it's
mystery.
a little serious, it's funny, but it's good.
Yeah.
The comedy.
Yeah, I'm willing. I want to do all the genres. I did a horror movie for Blumhouse.
Okay.
It came out at the beginning of this year. It's called There's Something Wrong with the Children. I shot that at the end of 2021. So that was cool. It was like a little foray into like horror film. So I've just been blessed to have that opportunity to kind of start like being and I did The Valet with Eugenio Derbez.
That's right. Yeah.
So I've been able to it's been really cool to be able to do both. I think it's kind of a dream because you don't want to, sometimes it's hard to jump from one to the other. So I feel like just kind of like being able to oscillate between the two mediums has been it's been a huge blessing for me.
How about like how is it now or are you getting like a lot of opportunities, a lot of calls? Is the phone ringing?
Right now, because of the strike,
are they sending you scripts?
Because of the strike, everything is shut down. Yeah. So the momentum from Primo is kind of like,
I hate that
because they can't. But it feels good. It feels like there's definitely interest. I don't have anything like specifically right now lined up, but there's stuff that's like in the ether that even if they were interested. My reps are not telling me because there's no date to film. Like there's no, but I asked the other day and they were like, yeah, people have been like checking out after Primo came out. So that's exciting. I mean, that's the hope. It's like to get to a point where you just keep like working and having all these opportunities. Undone is another show that I did for Amazon back it came out last year. and that was a dramatic role. Yeah. So that was real. I got to work with Constance Marie and Rosa Salazar, and that was a dope opportunity. So yeah, I'm really happy because I've been able to do some dramatic stuff. I've been able to do stuff in Spanish. I've been able to do now a straight single camera comedy. I mean, Gentefied was great, but but obviously it was more of a dramedy situation, which is a great way to get started. Yeah. So yeah, I'm just kind of.
We are getting around to the end here, and I know that you got somewhere to go, so I don't want to hold you too long.
I gotta go.
But I do want to ask you, like, are you still doing a lot of stand-up, or is it just improv?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you like in any of the local?
I've been doing a lot of Laugh Factory lately.
Okay.
And I do go out and venture. Yeah. I've been since the end of 2021. I've been touring along with Francisco Ramos.
Okay.
Because he was also on Gentefied. He was one of the cooks. And so originally we were trying to do like a Gentefied thing, and it ended up, we were trying to get other comedians and it didn't work out, but we ended up touring together. So we've been co-headlining shows around the country, when we get like booked for stuff. So that's always fun. But yeah, I perform almost every week. Lately I've been going to Long Beach a lot at the Laugh Factory. But it's really, I have I have shows pop up everyone. So I continue to do the stand-up, which is great. It's always been very seasonal for me because, when I was at a UCB, it was like all hands on deck, and I was in the sketch teams, and I was performing, and I was doing improv. So I feel like as long as my comedy demons are being exercised, I'm fine.
It's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in a great place right now because of the show. It's opened up doors for me to perform at places that maybe people didn't know about me, or would have been harder for me to get like stage time. So it's honestly, I say this and I truly mean it. Like, I know it's taken so long. I've been doing this for over 15 years, but it's the perfect time for me because I say this jokingly, but I kind of mean it. It's like I have the least amount of imposter syndrome. It's the most manageable it's been in my life, and it comes with time. It comes with
awesome.
It comes with time. It comes with preparation and just growth. And I'm at the best. The fact that it happened later in life has allowed me to really enjoy it and be present. And
you've put in enough work where fucking imposter syndrome is.
Yeah, I mean it's there. It's like over there. A beautiful mind.
Yeah,
it's over there. They're like, how about now? Like, get out of here. But yeah. But I'm very happy with just it's literally my dream come true to be able to just this is how I make a living. It's honestly like amazing. Yep.
This last weekend or whatever it was a week ago, being at La Leaf, like I literally went every day, was amazing. Just seeing like people like yourself and being around that whole mix, and it was the first time that I've been to an event like that where I didn't have imposter syndrome. Because it was like all my peeps, like people that I know now, like, and
you don't realize how much you've been in here until you get to La Leaf or these type of events where you know everybody.
God, it was so good to see a lot of people and people recognizing me and me recognizing people and like seeing movies that my friends made, and it's just beautiful. It's a really, really, really beautiful time.
It's like you're the mayor.
Chief of staff. No, I'm just kidding. So when we wind down, I always ask, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would like to share with us or talk about?
Career or personal?
Como tú quieras, man.
Como yo quiera. No, I think we covered it all. I was going to promote the movie coming out in August, but Vacation Friends too. No, I'm just happy. I think we're doing it. We're out here.
Follow on Instagram.
Of course it's Carlos.
Of course it's Carlos. Who else would it be?
Of course it's Carlos. Yeah. I tell people that and they're like, oh, it's Carlos. Like, no, of course. I'm not being a dig. Oh, of course.
The whole thing, spell it out.
Of course it's Carlos on Instagram.
All right. There's a question that I ask everybody at the end of each podcast, and it's a very vague question. So feel free to answer vaguely. I only ask that you try to answer in one sentence.
Okay.
And so
how many words?
It doesn't matter how many words. So if a being from another planet came down and looked at your life and was like, damn, look at all these things you've done, and you continue to do it, and you continue to kick ass. Like, Carlos, how do you do it?
No other choice.
That's beautiful. I love it. No other choice. Brother, thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
I really appreciate your time. And thank you for coming down here. And we'll see you guys next week.